Welcome, curious minds, to a new exploration into some really vital information. We're so glad you're tuning into the Lemon Clinic's podcast series today. We often hear about children acting out, maybe having tantrums, or just plain refusing to cooperate. It's a common experience for parents, right? But sometimes what seems like typical strong-willed behavior can actually signal something more profound. So our mission today is to really unpack these behaviors, try to understand their underlying causes, and most importantly, equip you with some evidence-based strategies, things to help foster more positive and connected family dynamics.
That's exactly right. We'll be drawing from a whole range of sources today. Clinical guidelines, yes, but also some really compelling real-life family stories. Try and give you a really comprehensive understanding of childhood defiance.
Okay, so what does all this mean for you? Whether you're a parent, a caregiver, maybe just someone interested in child development, we're going to dig into practical tools you can actually use, maybe some strategies to avoid, and look at how professional support like parent coaching and behavioral therapy can make a huge difference. All right, let's start by defining what we're really talking about. We all know kids can be defiant. I mean, a tired toddler melting down in the grocery store. We've all seen it or lived it. But there's a pretty critical difference between those, occasional outbursts and a really consistent pattern of defiance, the kind that truly disrupts family life.
Precisely. While pretty much every child might occasionally dig in their heels and say, no, I won't do it, or challenge a request, oppositional defiant disorder, or ODD, it's far more persistent. It's defined as an excessive pattern of negative, hostile, and defiant behavior. And it's usually directed toward authority figures, lasting for at least 6 months.
6 months, wow.
Yeah. So this isn't just a bad day or a bad week. It's a deeply entrenched behavioral pattern.
Okay, so how does that persistence actually show up? What specific behaviors are we looking for that might signal ODD, beyond just a child being difficult?
Well, what's really critical to understand is that these aren't just isolated incidents. They form a pattern. It shows up in ways like frequent temper tantrums, really excessive arguments with adults, actively refusing to comply with rules, or deliberately annoying others. You might also see them being unusually touchy or easily annoyed, maybe always blaming others for their own mistakes, and having frequent, really intense outbursts of anger and resentment. And what often surprises parents is how it can look different. Girls with ODD might show their aggression more verbally, maybe indirectly, while boys might be more likely to lose their temper and argue more directly.
And how common is this? Is ODD something parents are running into a lot, or is it, relatively rare?
Well, studies estimate ODD affects somewhere between 2% and maybe 16% of children in the U.S. A pretty common figure you hear is around 6% in childhood. In younger kids, it does seem to be more common in boys. The ratio is somewhere like 1.4 to 3 boys for every girl. But interestingly, by the teenage years, it tends to even out, affecting both genders relatively equally.
And it sounds like ODD rarely sort of exists in a vacuum. What else do we need to understand about how it connects with other conditions?
That's a really important point, indeed. A significant number of children with ODD also have other treatable conditions, which definitely complicates the picture. ADHD is the most common co-occurring condition. Estimates suggest 40% to maybe even 60% of children with ADHD also have ODD. And looking the other way, one big study found that 68% of individuals with ODD also have ADHD or maybe another impulse-controlled disorder. It can also coexist with things like anxiety disorders, mood disorders like depression or bipolar disorder, and even learning or language disorders.
So that raises a really important point for treatment, doesn't it?
It does. Addressing these coexisting conditions often makes the ODD treatment itself much more effective. You can't always just treat the defiance in isolation.
Okay, these statistics and definitions, they paint a picture. But to really grasp the sort of daily reality, let's turn to some of those family stories you mentioned. They sound powerful. Take Daniel's story. His mother used a really intense phrase, didn't she? She called him the original child from hell when he was just under 4. She described these horrible, hateful days where Daniel would just push her to her absolute limit, aggressive, violent tantrums lasting hours, hitting his mom, his sister, even making holes in walls. That sounds incredibly draining.
Oh, absolutely exhausting. And then there's Nathan. His mother, Kim, she talked about this never-ending battle. Nathan refusing school, stealing, breaking rules constantly. She described feeling like her whole life was just being run by his defiance, that it completely stripped away any feeling of, empowerment as a parent. These aren't just anecdotes. They really highlight the intense family-straining reality of ODD, the profound impact it has on a parent's sense of control, and sometimes even hope.
So why? Why does ODB develop? It's clearly not just about a child being naughty or, strong-willed. There must be deeper roots.
That's so crucial to understand. There's no single cause. Experts really believe it's a complex interplay, a combination of biological, psychological, and social factors. Biologically, for instance, there might be a parental history of ADHD, ODD, maybe conduct disorder, which is a more severe behavioral issue, or things like mood disorders or substance abuse. There could also be impairments in brain regions responsible for reasoning and impulse control, like the prefrontal cortex, kind of the brain's CEO. Or maybe chemical imbalances like disruptions in dopamine, which is key for motivation and reward. Even things like maternal smoking during pregnancy or poor nutrition might play a role.
Okay, so it's definitely not something parents cause, but more like a complex mix of factors. What about the psychological and social influences?
Exactly. From a psychological angle, things like a poor relationship with one or more parents, maybe a neglectful or absent parent, or even just difficulty forming social connections can contribute. And socially, factors like poverty, really chaotic home environments, abuse, neglect, lack of supervision, uninvolved parents, family instability like frequent moves or divorce, these are also significant contributing factors. It's a multifaceted puzzle, really.
This is where it gets really interesting, I think,
Hmm.
especially for parents who might feel completely overwhelmed or, gosh, even blame themselves. The sources highlight common pitfalls, right?
Hmm.
Things people do when dealing with defiant behavior that might actually backfire.
Yes, and one of the most critical don'ts is probably don't lose your cool. As the adult, you're the model for how to handle difficult situations. Defiant kids often lack the internal resources to figure out what to do next, so they are actually looking to you for guidance, even if it really doesn't seem like it in that heated moment. Losing your cool just escalates things, and it models the very emotional dysregulation they're already struggling with.
That makes sense.
Another huge one is don't go down the well. Don't let the child pull you into their momentary misery or get sucked into power struggles.
That sounds incredibly hard to do in the
It
moment.
is incredibly hard, but it's vital.
That
Because entering that power struggle, that gives them the exact attention, that negative attention they might be seeking.
So what are some other common missteps? Things that might inadvertently make the defiance worse?
Well, other things to avoid include not letting them off the hook responsibility-wise. They really need to understand consequences, both positive and negative. Also, try not to flash forward to the absolute worst case scenario for your child's future. It's so easy to do when you're stressed and in the thick of it, but it can be paralyzing and just lead to hopelessness. And crucially, don't forget to notice and pay attention to the good things about your child. Even when those challenging behaviors feel overwhelming, it's easy to get tunnel vision on the negative.
Because like you said, for a child, even negative attention's still attention.
Right.
And that can accidentally reinforce the very behavior you're trying to stop. It creates this really difficult cycle for everyone.
Yes, that's a critical point. It feels counterintuitive for parents sometimes, but our attention, even when it's negative, like yelling or arguing, often acts as a powerful reinforcer. It inadvertently signals to the child, hey, this behavior gets a big response.
Okay, so if yelling and punishment often don't work, or even backfire, what does work? This whole discussion seems to point towards proven strategies, things that build on positive interaction and skill building.
Absolutely. The most evidence-based treatment for ODD is something called behavior-based parent training. You might hear it called parent management training, PMT, or behavioral parent training, BPT. This is really where parents learn specific techniques, how to enforce consistent discipline, how to effectively praise good behavior, and how to set clear, firm boundaries. It's all about empowering the parents with new skills, shifting the focus to the caregiver, developing the tools they need to meet the child where they are developmentally.
And there's an important distinction here, isn't there, between that formal parent training and parent coaching. They sound similar, but the sources highlight some key differences.
They do, and it's helpful to understand. Think of parent training, BPT, as more of a structured therapeutic model. It's evidence-based, usually conducted by credentialed therapists over a set course, often 8 weeks or more. It teaches new skills from the ground up, provides science-based education on conditions like ADHD and their impact, and helps parents understand why certain behaviors happen and how to manage them through modeling, practice, maybe even live coaching during sessions. Programs like Parent-Child Interaction Therapy or PCIT or the Incredible Years Parent Program are good examples.
Okay, so that's a very structured, foundational kind of intervention. What about parent coaching then? How does that fit in?
Parent coaching is generally more of a goal-focused, often complementary approach. It often assumes parents have some basic knowledge already, maybe from training or reading. It provides that ongoing support, encouragement, and really crucial accountability to help parents implement the skills they've learned. It helps them navigate new challenges as they pop up in daily life. It offers practical tools you can use right away, often drawing on expert guidance and professional standards. It's really about reinforcing those skills and building confidence in applying them in real life, often messy situations.
That makes sense. So let's get into some of those practical tools parents can use at home. Our sources mentioned the ABCs of behavior management. That sounds like a useful framework.
Yes, the antecedents, behaviors, and consequences. Understanding these three parts really helps parents intervene more effectively, often proactively. So, antecedents, these are the triggers, the things that happen before the behavior. Being aware of environmental factors like hunger or fatigue is huge. Adjusting the environment, maybe creating a quiet homework space, making expectations really clear before a task starts, providing countdowns for transitions, okay, 5 more minutes of playtime, and offering choices whenever possible. All these things can help prevent misbehavior from even starting.
So it's about setting the stage for success, being proactive,
Okay.
and then for the behaviors themselves.
Right. For behaviors, the key is to define them very specifically. Instead of saying your child is just acting up, which is vague, say they are running around the living room or refusing to put on their shoes. This makes it clear, objective, and measurable.
Got it. And then the C consequences.
And then consequences. Here, you want to focus on effective consequences. Positive attention for positive behaviors is absolutely key. Catch them being good. Active ignoring for minor misbehaviors can also work. That means strategically withdrawing all attention, not looking, not talking, until the positive behavior resumes. You can use things like reward menus, where children earn points or tokens for good behavior and can then choose their own rewards. This gives them agency and motivation. And if you use timeouts, they really must be brief, immediate, consistent, and critically, only end when the child is calm and quiet. Then, importantly, you immediately return them to the original task or expectation. It's not an escape.
This whole ABC approach, it really feels like it empowers the parent to make changes, doesn't it? It shifts the focus away from just trying to fix the child and more towards the caregiver developing new, more effective skills.
Exactly. It puts the tools in the parent's hands. For Daniel, the boy we mentioned earlier, medication helped him calm down enough initially so he could learn strategies, like a traffic light system, to recognize his rising anger and then retreat to a quiet place before exploding. This helped his defiance diminish because he started to feel more in control, and his mother learned techniques to knock him off the track, as she put it, before a meltdown became inevitable. It was all about that proactive management and recognizing early warning signs.
And Nathan's mom, Kim Abraham, the one who felt at her wit's end, she developed her own system based on reciprocity. That sounds like a really interesting shift in dynamic.
It was, and quite powerful. Her approach became very direct. You don't do anything for me, well then I'm not doing anything extra for you. So if Nathan refused to do the dishes, maybe she'd do them herself this time. But then later, when he asked for a ride somewhere or wanted fast food, the answer was simply no. This consistency, where she maintained being 100% in control of the consequence, slowly but surely taught him that relationships are give and take. That personal responsibility leads to desired outcomes. It really empowered her by giving her back control over that dynamic.
So it's really not about being permissive at all. It's about clear, consistent, and calm boundaries, but delivered with empathy. Kind of a firm but loving approach.
Exactly. And the good news, the really encouraging part, is that with consistent evidence-based treatment, children and adolescents can overcome the behavioral symptoms of ODD. They absolutely can learn techniques to manage anger, cope with stress better. Follow-up studies show that approximately 67% so, about two-thirds of children diagnosed with ODD who received appropriate treatment, will actually be symptom-free after about 3 years.
That's a really powerful statistic. It just underscores the importance of getting help, of early intervention. These kids learn to build self-control, which leads to better behavior at school, at home, in social settings. It shows that seeking help can genuinely change a child's trajectory.
It really can. Now, while maybe 30% might still progress to conduct disorder, that more severe behavioral disorder involving aggression or destruction, and a smaller percentage might develop antisocial personality disorder later in life, the outlook is genuinely very good for those who receive consistent evidence-based treatment. And crucially, approaches that sound tough but aren't evidence-based, like boot camps or scare tactics, are generally not recommended. They can often do more harm than good, sometimes by modeling more aggression. Kids typically respond best to rewards for positive behavior and learning new skills in a supportive setting.
And we've seen how that early defiance, as incredibly challenging as it is, doesn't have to define a child's future. Daniel, the boy his mother once called the original child from hell, he found his passion helping refugees, right? Discovered this ability to lead and motivate people, developed a confidence he never knew.
Exactly. And Nathan, whose mother once feared he'd end up in prison, is now a successful roofer, a father himself, and his mother. She's now a therapist specializing in ODD, basing a lot of her practice on the very system she developed to help him. Which really raises an interesting, maybe provocative question to leave people with. What if those very qualities that make some children defiant, their stubbornness, their refusal to take no for an answer, maybe even their anger, what if those are precisely the qualities that, when channeled, when guided through firm, loving, consistent boundaries, what if those could actually equip them to become adults who challenge injustice, who forge new ways of thinking, who might truly change the world for the better?
That's a powerful thought to consider. Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive into understanding and navigating childhood defiance. We truly hope this discussion is giving you some valuable insights and maybe some practical strategies.
Yes, and remember, support is definitely available, and positive change is absolutely possible.
We really want to thank you for tuning into the Limit Clinics podcast series today. We genuinely appreciate you spending your time with us. If you are seeking support for your family, we absolutely invite you to visit us at www.lumitclinics.org.
You know, we've heard some really incredible feedback from families we've had the privilege to help. For instance, Shelley Robinson, who's the founder of Raising Yourself, shared that being coached by Sarah R. Moore profoundly impacted her personal and professional life. It helped her tap into her own inherent wisdom and cultivate self-compassion. That's powerful stuff.
It really is. And Catherine T. put it simply, working with Sarah is the best investment I've ever made for me, for my family, and for my approach to life. Her kindness and authenticity will change your life for the better, too. You can find out more and connect with us at www.lumiclinics.org. Until next time, keep learning and keep diving deep.